The final whistle was a mercy killing. Not a triumphant blast, but a flat, exhausted sigh that settled over the field like a shroud. We'd lost. Again. 3-1. The sting of it was familiar, a dull ache that had become the background music to my entire season, my entire year, maybe my entire life. I was Leo, number 14 on a team of men who played soccer on Saturdays with the ferocity of professionals and the budget of a high school bake sale. I was a midfielder, which felt appropriate. Always in the middle of the action, but never the one to score the winning goal or make the game-saving tackle. Just there, running, passing, existing. My cleats felt like they were filled with cement as I trudged off the muddy pitch. Rain had started in the second half, a miserable, persistent drizzle that plastered my hair to my forehead and turned the grass into a slick, treacherous mess. The air was thick with the smell of wet earth and collective disappointment. Around me, my teammates grumbled, heads bowed, shoulders slumped. Except for his, Julian's. He was our striker, our number 9, our unofficial captain, and the sun around which our sad little team orbited. Even in defeat, he carried himself differently. His shoulders were back, his chin was up, and as he jogged toward the locker room, he clapped a hand on the back of our keeper, a kid named Sam who looked like he was about to cry. Julian murmured something to him, and I saw the tension in Sam's shoulders ease just a fraction. Julian had that effect on people, on everyone, especially on me. I'd been nursing a crush on Julian since the day he'd joined the team 2 years ago. It wasn't a loud, dramatic thing. It was a quiet, persistent hum beneath the surface of my life, a secret I kept tucked away like a worn photograph. It was in the way my eyes would find him during drills, the way my breath would catch when he'd laugh, a loud, genuine bark of a sound that made you want to laugh with him. He was all easy confidence and casual grace, with a smile that could be either a comforting warmth or a mischievous slash depending on his mood. I was quiet observation and carefully constructed walls. We were different species. In the locker room, the atmosphere was morgue-like. The scent of sweat, mud, and liniment was overpowering. Men stripped off damp jerseys, the sound a wet slap of fabric against skin. I found my spot on the bench, my movements slow and deliberate, trying to delay the inevitable chill of the showers. My body ached in a way that felt deeper than just muscle fatigue. It was the ache of loneliness, of being on a team, but never truly feeling a part of it. I exchanged nods, offered the occasional tough break, but the easy camaraderie, the casual intimacy of shared space, always felt just out of my reach. I was an observer in my own life. Julian's voice cut through the muted groans. All right, lads, heads up. He was standing in the middle of the room, peeling off his own jersey. His torso was lean and corded with muscle, slick with a mixture of rain and sweat. A constellation of faint freckles dusted his shoulders, something you could only see up close. I knew this because I'd spent an embarrassing amount of time cataloging such details from a distance. We got beat. It happens. We'll get them next week. A few guys grunted in response, but no one looked convinced. I'm serious, Julian insisted, his tone firm but not unkind. We're better than this. We just need to pull it together. He looked around the room, his gaze sweeping over each of us. For a fraction of a second, his eyes met mine. It was nothing, a passing glance, but my heart did a stupid little lurch against my ribs. I looked away quickly, focusing on the impossible knot in my shoelace. That was the rhythm of my life. A fleeting moment of connection, real or imagined, followed by my own hasty retreat. I finally got my shoes off and gathered my towel and soap. The communal showers were my least favorite part of the whole ordeal. A long, tiled room with a dozen shower heads jutting out from the wall, offering zero privacy. I usually tried to be the first one in and out, a ghost slipping through before the room filled up. Today, I'd been too lost in my own melancholy, and most of the team was already in there, the room thick with steam and the sound of running water. I found an empty spot at the far end, turning my back to the room as much as possible. The hot water was a shock, but a welcome one, sluicing the mud and grime from my skin. I closed my eyes, letting the spray beat against my face, trying to wash away the game, the loss, the feeling of being perpetually on the outside looking in. I just wanted to be clean and gone. Mind if I grab this one? The voice was right next to my ear, low and familiar. Julian's. My eyes snapped open. He was standing beside me, a towel slung over his shoulder, gesturing to the shower head right next to mine. The one so close our elbows would practically touch. There were at least 3 other empty spots further down the wall. My mind, always a frantic hamster on a wheel, started spinning. Why this one? Why next to me? It's nothing. It means nothing. He's just grabbing the closest empty shower. Don't be an idiot. No. Go ahead. I managed to stammer, my voice sounding weak against the hiss of the water. He gave me a small smile, that easy, charming one, and turned on the tap. The spray fanned out, and for a moment, the steam swirled around him, making him look like something out of a dream. He ran a hand through his dark, wet hair, slicking it back from his forehead. I tried to focus on washing my own hair, on the mundane task of lathering shampoo, but my awareness of him was a physical presence, a hum of energy next to me. I could feel the heat radiating from his skin. I could smell his soap, something clean and sharp, like sandalwood and citrus, a scent so distinctly him. I kept my eyes fixed on the tiled wall in front of me. It was an old wall, with tiny cracks spiderwebbing through the grout. I focused on tracing one of the cracks with my eyes, a desperate attempt to anchor myself. Don't look. Don't look. It's weird if you look. It's weirder if you're this tense. Just act normal. What is normal? I had no idea. We stood there in silence for a minute, cocooned in our individual streams of water, yet hyper-aware of each other's proximity. The space between us felt charged, electric. Or maybe that was just me. It was almost certainly just me. I was a master at inventing intimacy where none existed. Brutal game, huh? He said, his voice cutting through the noise of the water. I risked a sideways glance. He was looking at me, his head tilted. Water trickled down his temples, tracing the strong line of his jaw. His eyes, a warm, deep brown, were surprisingly focused. Yeah, I said, my throat suddenly dry. Felt like we were running in mud the whole time. Tell me about it, he sighed, a heavy sound, and leaned a hand against the wall, stretching his side. The movement caused the muscles in his back and shoulder to flex and shift under his skin. It was a landscape I had studied from afar, but up close, it was breathtaking. The sheer, living reality of it. I watched, mesmerized, as a droplet of water traced a slow path down his spine. My gaze snagged on the spot, and I felt a jolt of pure, unadulterated want so sharp it almost made me dizzy. I snapped my eyes back to the grout lines on the wall. My heart was hammering. My back is absolutely shot, he grumbled, more to himself than to me. He rolled his shoulder, wincing. Pretty sure I pulled something when that big O from their defense took me down. An opening. A tiny, terrifying door had just creaked open in the wall between us. My brain screamed at me to say something, anything. Oh, that's too bad. Hope it feels better. Something normal. Something a normal teammate would say. But my mouth wasn't connected to the normal part of my brain. It was connected to the part that had spent 2 years fantasizing about this exact man. So, what came out was a strangled, where? Julian paused his stretching. What? Where? Does it hurt? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I could feel my face flushing, a heat that had nothing to do with the steam. He seemed to consider my question for a moment. He twisted slightly, trying to reach a spot between his shoulder blades. Right there, he said, grunting with the effort. That knot from hell. Can't quite reach it. And then he did something that completely short-circuited my brain. He looked at me, a slow, deliberate look, and a flicker of that mischievous grin appeared. It wasn't the big, easy smile from before. This was smaller, more focused. A challenge. You look like you know what you're doing, he said, his voice a low, playful rumble. You've got those long, pianist fingers. Bet you could work it out. My mind went completely blank. The sounds of the shower, the other guys laughing further down the line, it all faded into a dull roar. There was only Julian's voice, his challenging eyes, and the thundering of my own blood in my ears. This is a joke. He's teasing. He does this with everyone. He's just a friendly, tactile guy. But he wasn't looking away. He was waiting. I am standing in a shower with a half-naked Julian Thorne, and he is essentially asking me for a massage. The absurdity of it is a tangible thing. My internal monologue is screaming, a high-pitched, frantic abort, 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 while another, quieter part of me, the part that has been starved for any kind of connection, whispers, say yes. My hands, the pianist fingers he'd mentioned, suddenly felt huge and clumsy. I looked down at them, at the soap suds clinging to my knuckles. What would they feel like against his skin? The thought sent another jolt, this one lower, deeper, through my body. I don't know. I mumbled, the words tasting like ash. It was my standard response to everything. A retreat. A deflection. Julian just kept looking at me, his expression unreadable now. The playful glint was gone, replaced by something more serious, more watchful. He was studying me, and I felt utterly transparent, like he could see right through my skin to the frantic, yearning thing that lived inside me. Just a quick go, he said, his voice softer now. Team physio. For the good of the squad. Can't have your star striker out with a bad back, can you? He was giving me an out, framing it as a joke, a duty. He was making it easy for me. And that, somehow, was the thing that did it. His perception. His understanding that I needed an excuse, a role to play. I took a breath. It felt like my first one in minutes. Okay, I whispered. Just that one word. A slow smile spread across his face, and this time it reached his eyes. It was a smile of pure, unadulterated victory. Yeah, he said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming a low, intimate murmur that was just for me. Attaboy, Leo. He turned his back to me, bracing his hands against the tiled wall. The posture was one of complete trust, of surrender. He was offering me his back, his vulnerability, and my heart felt like it was going to beat its way out of my chest. I stared at the expanse of his skin, the smooth, taut planes of muscle, the elegant curve of his spine disappearing into the waistband of the shorts he still wore. The water streamed over him, glistening, making every contour, every line, stand out in sharp relief. This is happening. This is actually happening. My hands were shaking slightly as I rinsed the soap from them. I brought them up, hesitating for a fraction of a second, just inches from his skin. The heat coming off him was intense. I could feel it on my palms. I took another shaky breath and pressed my thumbs into the spot he had indicated, right between his shoulder blades. He sucked in a sharp breath, his whole body tensing for a second. Whoa, he breathed out. Okay, yeah, that's the spot. My thumbs, acting on some instinct I didn't know I possessed, began to move. I pressed down, feeling the tight, stubborn knot of muscle under his skin. It was like a stone. I started to work at it, moving in slow, deliberate circles. I had no idea what I was doing, not really. I was just channeling 2 years of pent-up observation, of imagining this very thing, into the tips of my fingers. Damn, he murmured, his forehead now resting against his forearms on the wall. His voice was thick. Wow. Encouraged, I grew bolder. I splayed my hands, using my palms to press along his shoulders, feeling the tension there. He was wound so tight. The confident, easygoing Julian was a fortress built on a foundation of tightly coiled wire. I could feel it. I moved my hands down, tracing the long muscles that flanked his spine. My fingers learned the shape of him, the dip and curve, the strength and sinew. The water ran over both of us, a constant, warm cascade that seemed to wash away the world outside our small, steamy bubble. The sounds of the other guys faded completely. There was only the rush of the water, the sound of his breathing, and the slide of my hands on his skin. He let out a long, slow sigh, a sound of pure release that vibrated through his entire body and up into my hands. It was the most intimate sound I had ever heard. The last of his playful bravado was gone, stripped away, leaving something raw and real in its place. "You're a natural at this," he said, his voice muffled by his arms. "Just lucky, I guess," I managed to say, my own voice sounding rough. My hands kept moving, emboldened by his reaction. I worked my way down to his lower back, my thumbs pressing into the sensitive divots just above his hips. He flinched slightly, a subtle, involuntary movement. "Sorry," I said quickly, starting to pull my hands away. "No," he said, his voice firm. "Don't stop." So I didn't. I returned my hands to that spot, gentler this time. The skin there was so soft. I could feel the slight ridge of his hip bones under my palms. My mind was a dizzying mix of panic and elation. Every touch was a transgression, a crossing of a line I had never even dared to approach in my daydreams. And yet, he was letting me. He was encouraging it. The steam was so thick now it was like a fog. I could barely see the other end of the shower room. It felt like we were the only two people in the world. Just us. My heart picked up its pace, a frantic, wild rhythm against my ribs. I am touching him. My hands are on his body. The thought is so loud, so overwhelming. It's a wonder he can't hear it. My fingers, which he called pianist fingers, feel both incredibly sensitive and strangely detached, as if they belong to someone else, someone braver than I am. They continue their slow exploration, learning the map of his back, the broad sweep of his lats, the hard ridges of his erector spiny muscles, the vulnerable curve where his back dipped toward his waist. Each touch is a revelation. He shifts his weight, pressing more of his back toward my hands, a silent request for more pressure. I give it to him, leaning in slightly, using my own body weight to deepen the massage. The knot in his shoulder has started to yield, softening under my persistent thumbs. I feel a ridiculous surge of pride. I did that. I'm easing his pain. How's that? I ask, my voice low, trying to sound like a person who does this all the time. A person who isn't having a full-blown internal meltdown. He doesn't answer with words. He just makes a low sound in the back of his throat, a guttural groan of pleasure and relief that travels directly from his body into my hands and shoots straight up my arms. It's a sound of unguarded satisfaction, and it's devastating. It undoes me completely. All my carefully constructed defenses crumble into dust. The pretense that this is just a friendly, platonic gesture evaporates in the steam. This isn't platonic. It hasn't been from the moment he chose the shower head next to mine. The realization hits me not like a lightning bolt, but like a slow, rising tide. I see it all now. The casual glances that lingered a second too long. The way he sometimes stood a little too close when we talked. The small, almost imperceptible smiles he'd give me when he thought no one else was looking. I had dismissed them all as products of my own wishful thinking. But what if they weren't? What if this whole time, while I was pining away in secret, he had been what? Pining back? It seems impossible. Inconceivable. Julian Thorne, who could have anyone, wanting me? My hands falter for a second. The smooth, rhythmic motion stutters. He notices immediately. Don't stop, he says again, his voice a little rougher this time, a little more urgent. I obey, my fingers resuming their work, but my mind is racing. Is this real? Am I reading this right? The risk of getting it wrong is catastrophic. The humiliation would be absolute. But the risk of doing nothing, of letting this moment pass, feels even worse. It feels like a betrayal of that quiet, hopeful part of myself I've kept hidden for so long. My hands drift lower again, almost of their own accord, to the small of his back. The space feels charged, forbidden. I let my palms rest there, my fingers spread wide over his hips. His skin is impossibly smooth. I can feel the warmth of him seeping into me, a deep, radiating heat. We are so close. If I took a single step forward, my chest would be flush against his back. The thought makes my breath hitch. He turns his head slightly, just enough to look at me over his shoulder. His eyes are dark and heavy-lidded in the steamy air. The playful spark is gone, replaced by an intensity that pins me in place. His lips are slightly parted. The water drips from the end of his nose. You're good at this, he says, his voice a low, gravelly thing that vibrates in the space between us. It's not a compliment. It's an observation, a statement of fact. I told you. I try to joke, but my voice cracks. Pianist fingers. A faint smile touches his lips, but it doesn't reach his eyes. His gaze is still locked on mine, searching, probing. Do you do this for everyone? He asks, his voice dropping even lower, becoming a conspiratorial whisper that only I can hear over the water. Or am I special? There it is. The tipping point. The loaded question. He's laid it all out, bare and undeniable. He's not asking about the massage anymore. We both know it. The subtext is so heavy it feels like a physical weight in the air. He's asking me to show my hand. To admit to the 2 years of silent longing, to the stolen glances, to the frantic beating of my heart right now. My throat closes up. Words fail me. My entire being is a screaming vortex of panic and desire. My hands are still resting on his lower back, and I can feel a fine tremor starting in them. I should pull away. I should laugh it off, make a joke, pretend I don't understand the question. That would be the safe thing to do. That would be the Leo thing to do. But I don't. I can't. I just stare back at him, my eyes wide, my lips parted. I can't form a single word. My silence is my answer. It's a confession more honest than any words I could ever speak. It says, yes, it's only you. It's always been you. He seems to understand. The intensity in his gaze softens, replaced by something that looks terrifyingly like relief. Like he was just as scared as I was. He holds my gaze for another long, charged moment, and then he slowly, deliberately, turns around to face me. Now we are standing toe-to-toe, the water cascading over both of us, plastering our hair to our skulls, running in rivers down our chests. The space between us is almost non-existent. I can see the individual droplets clinging to his eyelashes. I can see the slight flush high on his cheekbones. He's so close I could count the freckles on his nose. My hands are trapped between our bodies, pressed flat against his stomach. I can feel the hard plane of his abs beneath my palms. My mind is screaming at me to move them, but they're frozen, welded to him. He doesn't say anything. He just looks at me, and I look back. It's the first time I've ever truly met his gaze without flinching, without looking away. In his eyes, I don't see a joke. I don't see pity. I see a reflection of my own desperate, terrifying hope. Leo, he says, his voice is barely a whisper. So quiet, I almost feel it more than hear it. It's just my name. But the way he says it, it's like he's tasting it. Like it's a prayer. My breathing has stopped. The world has stopped. There is only the water, the steam, and the man standing in front of me. I am no longer thinking, no longer analyzing. I am just feeling. The heat of his skin under my hands. The heavy weight of his gaze. The frantic, fluttering hope in my chest that feels like it's about to break free and take flight. He lifts a hand, slowly, as if not to startle me. His fingers are wet and warm as they come to rest on the side of my neck. His thumb gently strokes the sensitive skin just below my ear. The simple, tender touch sends a shiver down my entire spine. It's a touch that speaks of care, of intention. Is this okay? He whispers, his eyes searching mine for any sign of hesitation, any hint of fear. I can't speak. I can only nod. A tiny, jerky movement. But it's enough. A slow, beautiful smile spreads across his face. Not the cocky grin, not the victorious smirk. This is a smile that is soft and genuine, and so full of warmth it melts the last of the ice around my heart. And then he leans in and closes the distance between us. The moment his lips touch mine, everything changes. The world doesn't just stop, it rewrites itself. My entire nervous system reboots. This is it. The breaking point. The confession. The consummation of 2 years of silent, hopeless yearning. I am kissing Julian Thorne. Julian Thorne is kissing me. His lips are softer than I ever could have imagined. They are hesitant at first, a gentle, questioning pressure. It's not a kiss of rampant passion, but one of discovery. A question asked and answered in the same breath. Am I reading this right? Yes. Do you feel it too? Yes. The water from the shower runs over our faces, a cool counterpoint to the fire igniting between us. I can taste the clean, metallic tang of it on his mouth, mixed with the faint, sweet taste of him. My eyes flutter shut, my hands, still pressed against his stomach, fist in his skin, clinging to him as if he's the only solid thing in a dissolving world. He makes a soft sound against my mouth, a sigh of contentment, and deepens the kiss. His other hand comes up to cup the other side of my face, holding me, framing my face as if I'm something precious. His thumbs stroke my cheekbones, and the gesture is so tender, so unbelievably gentle, that it makes my knees feel weak. I respond, finally. I kiss him back. All the fear, all the hesitation, dissolves into a pure, overwhelming wave of want. My lips part, and I meet his tentative exploration with my own. The kiss shifts, becomes less of a question and more of a statement. It's not rushed, not clumsy. It feels right. It feels like coming home to a place I've never been before. He angles his head, and the kiss deepens further. His tongue gently traces my lower lip, a silent request for entry, and I grant it without a thought. The first touch is electric, a jolt that travels through every nerve ending in my body. It's a dance of heat and moisture and shared breath in our little world of steam and running water. His hands slide from my face, down my neck, over my shoulders, and come to rest on my waist, pulling me closer until there is no space left between us at all. My chest is flush against his, skin to skin. I can feel the steady, strong beat of his heart against mine, a rhythm that feels just as frantic as my own. My own hands unlock from their death grip on his stomach and slide up his sides, over his ribs, to his back. The same back I had just been massaging. But this touch is different. This is not the touch of a physio or a teammate. This is the touch of a lover. My fingers grip his shoulders, holding on tight. I feel a tremor run through him, or maybe it's me. I can't tell where he ends and I begin. We are a single entity, wrapped in steam and secrecy, lost in a kiss that feels like it could last forever. It is the culmination of every stolen glance, every secret wish, every moment of quiet observation. It's the relief of reciprocation, a feeling so potent it's almost painful. He wants me. He wants me back. The thought is a sunburst in my mind, obliterating everything else. Then, a sound from the outside world penetrates our bubble. A locker slams shut. Loud. Jarring. It's a gunshot in our sanctuary. We break apart, gasping. Our foreheads rest against each other, our breathing ragged. My eyes are still closed, but I can feel him, his heat, his presence. His hands are still gripping my waist, and mine are still on his shoulders. The water continues to pour over us, a cold shock of reality. I open my eyes. He's already looking at me. His pupils are blown wide. His lips are red and swollen from my own. There's a dazed, wondrous expression on his face that I'm sure is mirrored on mine. Leo, he breathes, and my name sounds different now. Changed. Before I can respond, another voice calls out from across the locker room. Julian, you coming? We're heading to the tap for a pint. Reality comes crashing back in. The other guys. The team. The world outside our steamy cocoon. A sudden, cold wave of panic washes over me. What have we done? Here? In the open? Julian doesn't even turn his head. His eyes stay locked on mine. Be out in a minute, he calls back, his voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil I feel. He looks back at me, his expression softening. He sees the panic in my eyes. Of course he does. He sees everything. He lifts one hand from my waist and gently brushes a stray strand of wet hair from my forehead. Hey, he says softly. It's okay, but it doesn't feel okay. It feels terrifying. The beautiful, perfect bubble has popped, and now we're just two naked guys in a communal shower who just kissed like the world was ending. The morning after unease has arrived before the night has even begun. I take a step back, breaking the contact. The loss of his warmth is immediate and sharp. My skin feels cold. I can't look at him. I turn and quickly rinse the last of the non-existent soap from my body, my movements jerky and rushed. I need to get out of here. I need to be alone, to process the tectonic shift that just occurred in my universe. My heart is a frantic bird beating against the cage of my ribs. Did that just happen? Was it a mistake? Does he regret it? The questions swarm my brain, a plague of locusts. I turn off my shower without another word and grab my towel from the hook, wrapping it tightly around my waist. I don't look at him. I can't. I feel his eyes on me as I walk away, a heavy weight on my back. The walk back to my locker feels like a mile. My legs are trembling. I dress with frantic, clumsy fingers, pulling on my clothes, desperate to be armored again, to be hidden. I shove my wet towel and dirty kit into my bag, not bothering to fold anything. I can hear Julian turn off his own shower. I can hear the slap of his bare feet on the wet tile as he walks toward his locker, which is, of course, only a few down from mine. I sling my bag over my shoulder and stand up, ready to flee. I just need to get to the door. I can't face him. Not now. I need to be in my car, in my apartment, in the safety of my solitude, where I can replay the last 10 minutes over and over again until I make sense of them. I start walking, my eyes fixed on the exit sign at the end of the locker room. It's a glowing red beacon of escape. 10 more steps. 5. 3. Hey, wait. His voice stops me, just as my hand is reaching for the door. It's not loud, but it cuts through the ambient noise of the room. I freeze, my back to him. I can't turn around. I hear his footsteps, and then he's there, right behind me. He doesn't touch me, but I can feel his presence, his heat. I close my eyes, bracing myself for the inevitable. Look, that was a mistake. Let's just forget that happened. I got carried away. But that's not what he says. He just waits until one of the other guys walks past us and out the door. When we're alone in the aisle between the lockers, he speaks again, his voice low and for my ears only. "Don't run off," he says. It's not a command, but a soft plea. I still can't speak. I just stand there, my knuckles white where I'm gripping the strap of my bag. There's a beat of silence, and then he says the words that change everything all over again. "My place. Friday night. 8 o'clock. It's not a question. It's a statement. A plan. A promise. It's the reassurance I was so terrified I wouldn't get. It says, this isn't over. That wasn't a mistake. This is just the beginning." I slowly turn my head to look at him. He's dressed now, in jeans and a simple gray t-shirt. His hair is still damp, curling slightly at the ends. He looks normal, like just a guy, except for the look in his eyes. The intensity is back, but it's tempered with a hopeful vulnerability that mirrors my own. I search his face for any sign of doubt, any hint of regret. I find none, only a quiet certainty that steals my breath. "Okay," I whisper. The second time I've said that word to him today. The second time it has felt like leaping off a cliff. A small, relieved smile touches his lips. He nods once, a short, sharp gesture of confirmation. "Friday," he repeats. And then he turns and walks away, joining the rest of the team, leaving me standing by the door with my heart trying to beat its way out of my throat and a single word echoing in my head. Friday. The next 5 days were a special kind of torture, a limbo of anxiety and giddy, terrifying hope. My mind became a relentless replay machine, cycling through every single second of that encounter in the shower. The feel of his skin under my hands, the sound of his breathing, the low, gravelly timbre of his voice asking, "Or am I special?" The impossible softness of his lips. I'd be at work, staring at a spreadsheet, and suddenly I'd be hit with a sensory memory so vivid it made my stomach swoop. The smell of his sandalwood soap, the taste of chlorinated water, the solid, reassuring weight of his hands on my waist. I'd lose focus, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, my heart rate kicking up. My boss asked me if I was feeling all right on Tuesday. I think I mumbled something about a stomach bug. Sleep was a joke. I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, my brain buzzing with a million what-ifs. What does this mean? What does he want? Was it just a heat-of-the-moment thing? A curiosity he needed to satisfy? The thought that I might just be an experiment for him was a cold, sharp fear that would jolt me awake whenever I started to drift off. Julian was confident, experienced. I was not. The imbalance felt vast and insurmountable. But then I'd remember the look in his eyes after the kiss. That dazed, wondrous expression. And his voice, soft and urgent. "Don't run off," and the quiet certainty when he'd said, "My place." Friday night, it wasn't the voice of a man conducting an experiment. It was the voice of a man who was just as invested, just as scared, and just as hopeful as I was. We had practice on Wednesday evening. I almost didn't go. The thought of seeing him in that casual, public setting, of having to pretend that my entire world hadn't been fundamentally altered, was terrifying. What would I do? What would I say? Would he ignore me? Would he act weird? But not going felt like cowardice. It felt like a retreat, and I had promised myself I was done with retreating. So I went. I was a nervous wreck the whole time. I kept my distance during warm-ups, focusing intently on my stretches, acutely aware of his presence on the other side of the field. I could feel his eyes on me. I was sure of it, but I didn't dare look up to confirm. We were sorted into different teams for the scrimmage, a small mercy. I played terribly. My passes were off. My timing was a mess. I was so in my own head I could barely function. At one point, I was running for a loose ball near the sideline, and he was running for it too. For a split second, we were shoulder to shoulder, our arms brushing, a fleeting echo of the intimacy in the shower. The contact was brief, accidental, but it sent a jolt through me, a static shock of awareness. I stumbled, missed the ball completely, and it rolled out of bounds. "My bad," he said, jogging past me. It was casual, something he'd say to any teammate. But as he passed, he looked at me. It was just for a second. He gave me a tiny, almost imperceptible smirk and a slow, deliberate wink. It was a secret, just for us. A private acknowledgement in a public space. I remember. This is our secret. I haven't forgotten. The rest of the practice was a blur. That one tiny gesture was all the reassurance I needed. It was an anchor in the storm of my anxiety. He wasn't going to pretend it didn't happen. He wasn't going to ignore me. He was waiting for Friday, just like I was. Friday arrived like a verdict. The entire day was a wash. I accomplished nothing at work. I just watched the clock, my stomach twisting itself into increasingly complex knots. What do I wear? Do I bring anything? A bottle of wine. Is that too formal? Too presumptuous? I was spiraling, overthinking every single detail. This was my curse. I couldn't just exist in a moment. I had to dissect it, analyze it, and predict every possible outcome until I was paralyzed with indecision. At 7:45, I was standing in front of my closet, having tried on and discarded at least 5 different outfits. I finally settled on what I always wore: dark jeans, a plain black t-shirt, and my worn leather jacket. It felt like me. It felt honest. Trying to be someone else tonight felt like a lie. The drive to his apartment was the longest 15 minutes of my life. He lived in a newer building downtown, the kind with a sleek lobby and a security desk. It felt a world away from my own small, walk-up apartment in a quieter part of the city. Another reminder of the chasm between our lives. I found a parking spot on the street and sat in my car for a full 5 minutes, my hands gripping the steering wheel. My heart was a frantic drum solo. I could still leave. I could just drive away, text him some lame excuse. A family emergency. A sudden illness. He would be disappointed, maybe, but he would move on. Life would go back to normal. Safe. Lonely. No, I was done with safe and lonely. I got out of the car, my legs feeling unsteady. I walked into the lobby, gave his name and apartment number to the person at the desk, and took the elevator up to the 10th floor. The hallway was silent and carpeted, smelling faintly of clean linen. I found his door, 10B. I stood in front of it, my hand raised to knock, and hesitated. This was it. The final step. The conscious choice. The moment I moved from passive observer to active participant. This was me, choosing to walk through the door that Julian had opened for me. I took a deep breath, and I knocked. The sound was loud in the quiet hallway. I heard movement from inside, footsteps approaching. My heart leaped into my throat. The lock clicked. The door swung open. And there he was. He was leaning against the doorframe, wearing gray sweatpants and a faded university hoodie. His hair was slightly messy, and he was barefoot. He looked comfortable. He looked real. And he was smiling. Not the mischievous grin, not the victorious smirk. It was a soft, genuine smile. The kind I had seen for just a second in the shower before he kissed me. A smile that was just for me. "Hey," he said, his voice quiet, a little husky. "You came. You told me to." I replied, and was surprised to hear my own voice come out steady. He chuckled, a low, warm sound. "That I did." He stepped back, holding the door open wider. "Come on in." I stepped over the threshold, and it felt like crossing a border into a new country. His apartment was simple, clean. A comfortable-looking gray sofa, a large TV, a small kitchen off to the side. There were a couple of framed photos on a shelf, one of him with what looked like his family, another of our soccer team, grinning after a rare win. On the coffee table, there was a stack of pizza boxes. "I hope you're hungry," he said, closing the door behind me. The click of the latch echoed in the sudden quiet of the room. We were alone. "I didn't know what you liked, so I got a pepperoni and a veggie." "Either is fine," I said, feeling suddenly shy and awkward. I was standing in the middle of his living room, my jacket still on, my bag still slung over my shoulder. I didn't know what to do with my hands. He seemed to sense my unease. "Here," he said, gently taking my jacket. "Let me get that." His fingers brushed mine as he took it from me, and the small touch was like a spark. He hung it on a hook by the door, then turned back to me. "Beer? Wine? Water?" "Water is good," I said. "Water it is." He disappeared into the kitchen, and I was left alone for a moment. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. I looked around the room, at the small details of his life. A stack of books on the floor next to the sofa. A pair of running shoes by the door. It was just an apartment. He was just a guy, and I was here. He came back with 2 glasses of water and handed one to me. Our fingers brushed again. This time, it felt deliberate. "So," he said, leaning against the kitchen counter, taking a sip of his water. He was watching me over the rim of his glass, his eyes warm. "Brutal week." I let out a small, shaky laugh. "You have no idea." "Oh, I think I have some idea," he said, a hint of that familiar playful glint returning to his eyes. Felt like the longest 5 days of my life. My heart skipped a beat. He felt it too. The waiting, the anxiety, the anticipation. I wasn't alone in this. Mine too, I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. We stood there for a moment in comfortable silence, just looking at each other. The awkwardness began to melt away, replaced by the same charged intimacy that had filled the shower room. But here, it was different. It wasn't frantic or secret. It was quiet, calm. Come on, he said, gesturing with his head toward the sofa. Let's eat before it gets cold. We sat down on the sofa, a respectable distance between us. He opened the pizza boxes and handed me a plate. We ate in a comfortable silence for a few minutes. The only sounds the quiet chewing and the hum of the refrigerator. It was so normal, so domestic, and yet it felt more profound, more significant than the most dramatic cinematic confession. This was real life. This was two people sitting on a couch, sharing a pizza. After we finished eating, he took the plates back to the kitchen and came back to the sofa. He didn't sit at the other end this time. He sat closer, leaving only a few inches of space between our thighs. The heat from his body was a tangible presence. He picked up the remote from the coffee table. Want to watch a movie or something? Sure, I said, my voice still quiet. He started scrolling through a streaming service, but he didn't seem to be paying much attention. His thumb moved over the buttons, but his focus was elsewhere. After a minute of this, he put the remote down and turned to face me. Leo, he started, his voice serious now. He shifted, turning his whole body toward me. About the other day. My stomach clenched. Here it comes. I'm not sorry, he finished, his gaze steady and unwavering. Not for any of it. But I am sorry if I freaked you out. If I pushed you too hard. I was so stunned by his directness, by his honesty, that I couldn't speak for a moment. He thought he had pushed me. You didn't, I finally said. Push me. I took a breath, forcing myself to be as brave as he was. I've wanted that for a long time. The words hung in the air between us. My confession, out in the open, undeniable. A slow, beautiful smile spread across Julian's face. It was a smile of pure, unadulterated relief. The same expression he'd had just after I'd kissed him back. Yeah, he breathed. How long? I looked down at my hands, suddenly shy again. A while, I mumbled. How long is a while? He pressed gently, a teasing note in his voice. I risked a glance at him. He was watching me, his face soft with an emotion I couldn't quite name. It looked like affection. It looked like he was treasuring this moment. Since you joined the team, I admitted, my voice so quiet it was almost inaudible. 2 years. His eyes widened slightly. He let out a low whistle. 2 years, he said, a note of wonder in his voice. And you never said anything? He shook his head, a look of fond exasperation on his face. Leo, you're going to be the death of me. He reached out, his hand covering mine where it rested on the sofa cushion. His touch was warm and firm and real. He laced his fingers through mine. The simple gesture felt more intimate, more binding, than the kiss in the shower. It was a promise, a connection. For the record, he said, his voice a low, serious murmur. It hasn't been 2 years for me, but it's been long enough. I never thought you, he trailed off, shaking his head again. I'm not good at reading people. But with you, it's like you're behind this one-way glass. I could see you, but I couldn't figure out how to get to you. So you joined me in the shower, I said, a small smile playing on my lips. He laughed, a genuine, happy sound that filled the room. Yeah, he said, squeezing my hand. So I joined you in the shower. I figured I had to do something to break the glass. We sat there, our hands intertwined, a quiet understanding passing between us. All the anxiety, all the fear had vanished. In its place was a feeling of profound peace, a feeling of rightness. He didn't lean in to kiss me again. He just sat there, holding my hand, looking at me as if he was finally seeing me clearly. And I looked back, feeling, for the first time, truly seen. So, he said after a long, comfortable silence, his thumb stroking the back of my hand. What do we do now? It was a real question. A question about the future. About us. I thought about the years of silent observation, of feeling like a ghost in my own life. I thought about the terror and elation of the past week. And I thought about this moment, right now. Sitting on a couch with a boy I was falling in love with, his hand in mine, a future stretching out before us, unwritten and full of possibility. I looked at our joined hands, and then back up at his face. His warm, hopeful, beautiful face. I don't know, I said, And for the first time in my life, the words didn't feel like a retreat. They felt like an invitation. I guess we figure it out. His smile was blinding. Yeah, he said softly. I'd like that. He squeezed my hand one more time, then picked up the remote. He started scrolling through the movies again, but this time he leaned back against the cushions, pulling me with him until my head was resting on his shoulder. He draped his arm around me, his hand still holding mine, resting it on my chest. I could feel the steady beat of my own heart under his palm. I closed my eyes, breathing in the scent of him, laundry detergent, pizza, and that same sandalwood and citrus I remembered from the shower. The quiet intimacy of the moment was overwhelming. This was better than any fantasy I had ever constructed. This was real. He finally settled on some mindless action movie, but neither of us was watching. I was listening to the sound of his breathing, the soft thud of his heart against my ear. He was gently stroking his thumb back and forth over my knuckles. I was no longer an observer. I was here. I was a part of this. The quiet hum of loneliness that had been the soundtrack to my life for so long was finally silent. In its place was a new sound, a quiet, steady rhythm of two hearts beating in time. It was the sound of coming home.